We start on the DXY on the weekly time frame, and we had 3 high test candles in a row now, a bearish, a bullish, and a bearish high test candle again. That's not a very common price action on the 4-hour time frame. We can see this was mainly due to the sell-off on Friday because of the poor data coming out of the US with the poor NFP data, and of course a high likelihood for further rate cuts from the Fed. I do have here this expanding structure as a guide, and we can see price had a fairly strong reaction here on the low of the structure. So fundamentally, I'm definitely looking more for US dollar shorts with this potential catalyst, and overall higher time frame. I'm still looking for price to finish this 1, 2, 3 move into the low. But with this price action, even though price would go back up into the high here and in finishing this expanding, the overall bearish sentiment would still be in place. So considering the lower time frame is a bit conflicting here on the 4-hour time frame, this could be the start of a reversal, but I'm more looking for price to form or to be corrective in this area on Monday and then drop out, because overall we have enough volume accumulation here for the next move to the downside. So this is my main thesis for next week, but we will see that very early on Monday, early in the week, if this overall thesis is in place. Otherwise we are able to change bias fairly fast. We can also see on most of the other pairs there are in areas where both directions would make sense. So we are basically in decision areas. On euro US dollar here on the 4-hour time frame, you can see the same, just inverse. Of course, we tapped the high here, actually we closed the gap. It would still make sense for price to reach the high, then the larger value area here to the left. That's my overall thesis I'm looking for. But you can see here with this reaction here, this reversal candlestick pattern on the high, so it would also make sense for price to sell off in terms of price action, lower time frame price action. On the 15-minute time frame here, you can see we had nice reaction actually, and you can see here the lower time frame would allow both. So this could be the start of a smaller first initial consolidation continuation pattern into the next larger one. So if we see that on Monday and we are ready here for the second continuation into London session, then of course I know my overall bias has to be adjusted for the coming week, and the dollar might rally mid or short term actually. But if we see, and that's my main thesis again, if we see price remains around the high and forming a corrective price action in form of at least a 1-hour 2-touch structure, then I'm more than happy to take a long in this area to finish the last leg. Australian dollar, US dollar, we don't have to go into detail. It's basically the same like on euro, US dollar. We are in an area where both areas make sense, or where both directions make sense. I'm looking for a long continuation. Euro Canadian on the daily time frame. We can see here there is an argument for this ascending wedge to finish the run into the value area here to the left. We can see that here on the weekly time frame, this value area here would be my next target. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see here we had a very nice reaction on the high here, very similar to all the other pairs you see. And on the 15 minutes, we do have a very clear liquidity area here for price to retest. So as long as we are trading above this area here, I'm looking for an overall long continuation. Euro pound on the 4-hour time frame, an interesting pair again. We had this on and off on watch. We had this 1, 2, 3, a structure within structure. We were looking for shorts in this area, did not get the shorts. Price broke out, formed the V-shaped recovery. Then we have an impulsive move to the downside. On the 1-hour time frame, we can see here we left an area. Price retested this area, but this is a bit messy price action, so there was no clear entry for me. So I'm looking for price to break below all this price action here, forming a smaller continuation to then enter a short continuation in this area. Pound New Zealand dollar on the daily time frame. We can see here, yeah, we did turn around in no man's land here. We left a very clear liquidity area, retesting this whole price action here. We left the gap. So overall, it makes sense for price to close the gap. And even if we overall look for longs into the highs, so medium or short term, it would make sense for looking for short plays on the 1 hour time frame. Actually, on the 15-minute, there was a trade. I took this trade as a break even last week. We tapped the high, we had corrective price action, then an impulse followed by a continuation, and that was a fairly nice continuation play. It did not work out in the longer run, so that's just a break even for me. So now I'm looking for price to form a larger continuation pattern to enter a short in this area, closing the gap here. It's already slightly larger structure, but this would be very deliberate price action to enter a short. New Zealand dollar Canadian on the daily time frame. We were looking for shorts here. We said overall it makes sense for price to close the gap here to this high, but then we were looking after price finally broke below and started to form here consolidation. We were looking for shorts in this area. Unfortunately, we did not get any shorts here. You can see price impulsively broke back into the larger structure, and I'm now looking for long continuation again. This is a bit a too aggressive move into no man's land to just be a washout, so I'm not expecting price to just drop back in followed by a continuation down here. That would not make sense, so therefore I'm looking for a long continuation in this area. Australian dollar Canadian on the daily time frame, we have a similar picture. We had this all corrective price action creeping up, closing the gap into this liquidity area here, and we finished the day a bit on a week, so it's a bit undecided. On the 4 hour time frame, you can see here this is way closer to the overall structure than what we saw on New Zealand dollar Canadian, so this could potentially be a washout. And if we see an impulsive move back below followed by a continuation, then of course I would change my bias. But as long as we trade above the liquidity area we saw here to the left, I'm looking for long continuations. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar on the daily time frame, I'm looking for price to reach this high here, closing the gaps here, and we had a nice impulsive move here, and we are now a bit corrective. Price turning around here in no man's land does not really make sense, and we can see here we had a very nice high, an impulsive move, and then a V-shaped recovery, and it failed to sell off. We have here a wick on the 1 hour time frame. We can see we have very nice clean price action in this regard. Let me go back to the 1 hour time frame. We had a nice wick here tapping the low. We filled the wick with full price action and the retrace. So this could be something to entertain for Asia session. It's Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar would make sense to trade during that session. And on the 15 minutes, we can see here we had a nice impulsive move to the upside, a small liquidity area. So this candle has to be considered with a bit careful, because that might look different on broker to broker since it's the Friday evening closing candle. But nevertheless, there could be a gap on some brokers or whatever. If we get a deliberate structure like this, I would entertain a long in that area. Swiss francs, Japanese yen on the daily time frame. We are in this corrective bullish squeeze on the way, retesting the highs here again. And we have here I just have this channel as a guideline, and we do know when we have this corrective price action, if we see a flat structure, they can break out fairly aggressively. So in this case, that might break out to the upside. I'm just inversing the picture. For me, that's easier to see. So I'm looking for price to form a structure within structure, basically here retesting this high here to the left, which would align more or less with the channel. So for a short or for a long continuation into the high, sorry, this is inversed. So euro, Japanese yen on the 4 hour time frame. Again, I'm looking for longs for price to retest the highs here. We have a very nice first impulsive move, a larger correction, a middle section, and then We are looking for the next impulsive move to the upside. And we can see here that's a 4-hour structure, clearly visible on the 1-hour time frame as well. We have a liquidity area here. We have a 1, 2. We are looking for price to finish the third leg. We have here an override area, so we have to be careful how price reacts on this area. But ideally, we see price finishing the structure to enter along in this area for the last leg into the high. So that's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.